episode 4 of Carbs and Cars. Paul Cassimaty, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Mate, give us a bit of a brief background about yourself, and then let's get into this beast.
Okay, so I guess I grew up in Sydney my whole life, born and raised. Always had a love of cars from a very young age. It probably came from my father. He was a bit of a car nut. In fact, cars, I think, ran in our family. So dad and his brothers, they were kind of into BMWs, and that kind of filtered down through to the kids. And my brother, I guess, from a very young age, was also into Porsches. So for me, having an older brother that was into Porsches, naturally you deviate towards that, you know. So that's where my love of Porsches came from. I guess, you know, cars in general for me, like Dad used to get Unique Cars magazine, and I always flick through it, and I always dream when I get older I want one of them and one of them and one of them, and one day I was flicking through and I came across this Bahama yellow Porsche 912, and I said to my dad, I want one of these. And he goes, when you save your pocket money, one day you can buy one.
Get one.
So that was the start of the Porsche love affair, and here we are today with my 1967 Porsche 912.
Wow, your very own.
My very own.
Give us the story about this, because there's quite a history behind this.
There is a bit of a history.
Something very rare, very individual.
Yeah.
And pretty close to immaculate as they are, or as it will be.
It's almost there.
Almost there. Yeah.
The interior's not in it yet, but yeah. So, like I said, when I was about 12 years old, I said to my dad, I want a Porsche 912. I didn't know why I wanted a 912. I just liked the look of it. And it was a bit different. It wasn't a 911.
Yeah.
So when I was 18, I had $5,000 in the bank. And my father had a friend of his who had another friend who had just bought this car for his daughter a week earlier. And he said, I think it's the same car that your youngest son wants. And he goes, oh, where is it? And it was up in a panel beater's workshop up in Artarmon under a cover. It had been there for years.
Yeah.
So without knowing where it was, my dad went up to Artarmon, went through every panel beater workshop.
Wow.
Found the car. And then without the owner knowing, we ended up bringing our mechanic to look at the car. We opened it up, put a battery charger on it, got it started. And then we got in touch with the owner who'd bought it the week before and bought it basically a week later. So that's a story of my first car. The night I bought it, my dad said to me, how much money do you have in the bank? And I said, I've got $5,000. And that was from working school holidays while I was in high school, working a job at Peters of Kensington, department store in Sydney, when I was at uni, first year uni. And he goes, all right, so I'm going to buy the car through the family business, which is a real estate agency.
Yep.
And you're not allowed to drive the car until it's fully paid off and insured in your name.
It's fair.
Other than doing letterbox deliveries for the family business and doing 2 Porsche Club events a year.
It's a pretty good deal.
And if you don't pay it off within 2 years, the car gets sold.
Wow.
The night I got home from purchasing the car and giving Dad the $5,000, the loan was $15,000 by the way, so it was cost $20,000 in 2001.
So you had a bit to go.
So Dad made me write a contract that night when I got home.
All legit, all formal.
All formal. No smoking, no drinking, no girlfriends, room tidy, all these conditions. And then, so unfortunately my dad passed away 6 months after that contract was signed, and I paid the car off to my mum. So I paid her off. And then, got the car, got the engine and gearbox rebuilt in probably 2004.
Yep.
And then, just recently in the last sort of 18 months, did a full body restoration on it,
Mm-hmm.
back to original colour.
What colour is it?
It's called olive.
Okay.
It's just straight olive, so it's a non-metallic
Yep.
colour. And it's, I think there wouldn't be too many in the world, let alone in the country in olive. I don't think there'd be any others in olive.
Wow.
But now the car itself, 67 model, Australian delivered, factory right-hand drive. It's one of about 1,000 in the world in right-hand drive.
Wow.
They made about 30,000 912s.
Mm-hmm.
And it retains its original engine.
Yep.
And gearbox.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a rare little thing. And yeah.
That's special.
Yeah.
That is very, very special. So, do you plan on always staying a Porsche guy?
Oh, yeah, once you're a Porsche guy, you're always a Porsche guy, I think.
And would you ever sell it or no? It's forever.
No. I've been offered a few silly numbers for it,
Yeah.
but there's no way. I've been on this journey with this car for 20 years now, 22 years.
Wow.
It was my first car. And yeah, we've been on a lot of road trips, and Sydney to Melbourne a few times, Sydney to Byron a few times, and yeah, no.
She's done right by you.
Oh yeah, super reliable. Yeah, just doesn't miss a beat.
Doesn't miss a beat. You
No.
were telling me before a story about how was it the original owner?
Yeah,
Can we get into that?
sure. So the day we went to, the day we picked up the car, we took it to, because it had a bit of rust in it. Had a lot of rust in it actually. It actually looked, from the outside, it looked really, really good. But then when you really got into it, it needed floors, inner outer sills, rear suspension mounts, front pan. It needed a lot of work.
The problem with rust is once you start, you can't stop. It's how long's
crazy.
a piece of string. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we got it to a point where structurally it was all good, but when it went to the when I went to the body repair, the first body repairer in 2001, I opened the passenger door, and in the door card was the original service book. In the original service book folder
Yep.
from when the car was new.
Wow.
So I opened that up, and it had the original owner's name, address, etc., along with all the, obviously, the chassis number, engine number, all of the, and my dad actually contacted that guy, and his name is Jeff Carter. He was a motoring journalist in the 60s and 70s for Modern Motor magazine, which is now Motor. And Jeff mentioned to my dad he'd written a couple of books. The car was featured in those books. He also did an article on the car at some point in the 60s, but he couldn't remember. My dad tracked down one of the books, and in fact the magazine reference was in the book, in one of the photographs.
Wow.
So after Dad had passed away, a number of years later, I tried to contact Jeff again, but he'd never answer my calls, so I kind of gave up on it. In 2006, I was down in King Street Wharf at a friend's birthday, 25th birthday.
Yeah.
And I'd parked the car outside a pub on Sussex Street in Sydney CBD.
Risky.
Yeah. Oh, no, back then, no one was interested in these things back then. They were a bit of a nothing car.
It's a different story today, for
yeah,
sure.
of course, yeah. But no, I used to drive it and enjoy it. I didn't really care where I parked it. And anyway, I get back to the car after leaving these birthday drinks, and this elderly, or not elderly, probably mid-50s or so, couple was standing in front of the car, and the guy goes, "Oh, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you." I said, "Likewise." And he goes, "My father had one of these when I was young, but it was a different colour, but it had a similar number plate." So I'd gotten the original number from the photograph in the book, so I knew what the registration was when it was new. So I went to the RTA at the time and got that number plate and put it on the car. But the car was ivory, not olive.
Okay.
So
it originally came out as olive, and then it was painted in ivory.
Correct.
And
at
then
some point.
Okay. And then now you've gone back to olive.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So this guy, he said, "Oh, my father had a car like this when I was younger, and it had a similar number plate, but it was a different colour. And I said, "You're not Jeff Carter's son, are you?" He said, "Yeah." I'm like, "You're kidding me.
Wow.
I've been trying to get in touch with your dad for like the last 4 years."
It's fate. He found you.
Yeah, unbelievable. So he said, "Yeah, Mum and Dad are still alive. They live in Foxground, where the car was originally delivered on the service book."
Wow. So still there.
Yeah,
Same address?
They're still there, same address.
Wow.
And he said, "We have a cafe in town. If you're ever in Berry, let us know, and I'll ring Dad up and see if he wants to see you." So about a year later, I was in Berry at a friend's farm. We went dirt bike riding for the weekend, and basically went to town. He remembered me from the year earlier. I had the car with me, and he rang his dad, and his dad said, "Yep, send him up." And Jeff was also a photographer, you know, as much as he was a motoring journalist. So we ended up taking a whole heap of photos together with the car as it was in 2007, and then went into his dark room, and he pulled out all these negatives of the car when it was new.
Wow.
He got my address, and then that was that. 2 weeks later, I get a thing in the post, all these beautiful prints of my car when it was new.
Big care package.
Big care package, yeah.
Wow.
And all the photos from when it was new, and then all photos of me and Jeff on the day that I met him, which is really nice. So I've got a bit of a history file on the car, which is really cool.
Wow. So it definitely looks like you drive it. That's for sure.
Oh yeah,
It's not.
She gets driven.
Yeah. It's not something that's babied. So you've done. So you drive it hard.
Definitely.
You take it to the track.
Not to the track.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
You planning on it?
I think I might at one point, just to give it a go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't track it regularly.
Yeah.
But when it comes to weekend drives, I definitely get into it.
Yeah, of course.
On the back roads.
Do you get? Yeah, I'm sure. Do you get a bit worried driving it, especially around Sydney, thin streets, parking it around?
No,
Just
not at all.
yeah. Okay.
I didn't restore it to make it a garage queen.
Yeah, of course.
I restored it to drive it. You know, for me, you have a Porsche like this, you've got to drive it and drive it as it was intended. You know, which is one way.
Of course. So before these pizzas get cold,
Yes.
today we have obviously the podcast is Carbs and Cars.
Yes.
Carbs as in carbohydrates, but also carbohydrates.
Yes.
So we have some pizzas from a local place just here in Darlinghurst.
Okay.
Called Mad Pizza.
Oh, very good.
Okay, that's a complete fail. So filming this podcast in the evening, as not usually we're in the morning. So usually I'll go pick up something to eat, and we've had this delivered, and it hasn't
turned out.
It hasn't turned out exactly
as intended.
Should we try the bottom one?
Sure.
Let's try the bottom one.
Let's give this one a go.
All right.
No, it's not looking much better.
It's not looking much better. Okay. Well, look, we tried.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's not looking better at all. All right. Well.
Well,
All right. We'll see what we can salvage.
that's all good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh gosh. All right.
Oh wow, not much better. Oh, that one's worse. Okay. All right.
That's okay.
It's still pizza.
Exactly.
It's still good. What's your favorite food?
Oof, that's a big question. I think I'm Greek heritage,
Okay.
so I definitely like my Greek food. And there are a lot of carbs in
There's
Greek
a lot.
food.
There's a lot.
Spanakopita, that's one of the favourites.
I do love a spanakopita. Love.
I think everyone
not
does.
Greek, but I can appreciate a good one. That's for sure. Yeah. Are you more a savoury or a sweet person?
100% savoury.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not much of a sweet tooth.
What are Greek desserts?
Oh, baklava,
Okay.
kuluri, which is like a biscuit.
Okay.
Cassimaty, which is another biscuit. There's a few different desserts.
When did your family come here?
So my grandfather came here in the early 1900s.
Wow.
Yeah, like about 1912, I think.
Wow.
But he was born in 1898,
Okay.
and he had a lot of brothers and sisters.
Yep.
they sent him to Australia. And I think it was by 1920 he'd sent £1,000 back to Greece. He brought a couple of siblings out in the 20s and opened a cafe in central New South Wales with his brothers.
Wow.
In Molong.
Okay. No idea where that is.
Near Orange.
Okay, cool.
In between Orange and Wellington.
Okay,
it's a little town. So they settled out there, and then my uncle ended up buying the cafe from my grandfather. And then...
Sorry, can I get a napkin, please?
Sure.
I think it's just under
they're
here.
under here. There you go.
Thanks.
Yeah, so in the, I think 69, I think it was, or 68, my uncle was the last one to leave. So he sold the shop and moved to Sydney with the rest of the family. So my family ended up settling in Sydney and Randwick.
Yep.
And
everyone's here now?
Yeah, everyone's still here.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever tried a Greek dessert. Like baklava, yeah, but the other ones you mentioned, I don't think I have.
Like dry biscuits. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing too... Oh, garlic burrito is another one.
Okay. What's that?
It's like a custardy kind of dessert.
Delicious. Yeah.
It's quite nice, actually.
Yeah. Savory or sweet, I'm good for anything, basically.
Yeah?
So if it's in front of me, it's getting eaten. So would you get another Porsche?
Yeah.
What would you get?
Oh, God, so many. I think for me, I'd love to get... I like the Ram models. So, homologation specials, things like that. So for me, a 996 GT3 Mark 1.
Yeah.
They made just on 1820 odd, I think, from memory, or 1860. It's only 300 in right-hand drive. There's only about 40 in Australia.
Wow.
They made club sport and touring variants, but I'd probably like to get a touring in one of them.
Okay.
That's probably the first one that I'd get. Also, if I could ever afford it, a GT3 touring in a 991 is for me just a beautiful looking car.
Yeah, magnificent.
And then there's a few others. I mean, 964 has always been a shape that I've loved. It was the last of this shape.
Yep.
But with the impact bumpers.
Yeah.
Before the 993 came out. So just that pure 911, original 911 shape, the end of the series. But particularly, I'd like to get a Speedster in one of them.
Okay, magnificent.
Which there's only 6 in Australia, I think, and they're not cheap.
No. So if you can afford it, it's down the line.
Yeah, that'd be something.
And what colour?
The Speedster? There's only 2 black ones.
Okay.
And there's 2 white ones and 2 red ones.
All right, so black, white, or red, they're your options. What's your preference?
White.
Okay. Would you get a new Porsche?
No.
Why?
I don't like... I mean, apart from the 991 touring, just purely for the fact that I love the no wing and all of that.
Yeah.
And I don't like the way cars are going in terms of technology. So the brand new cars, even like 1 series on, have a lot more technology than the previous generation.
Yeah.
It's accelerating like at a rate of knots. So for me, it doesn't appeal to me. I like a car to have less. Less is more to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Character. More power. Power is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But more involvement, less electronics, less gadgetry.
Yeah. It is a shame that a lot of the driver cars of today are becoming less and less driver and more about the car and more about the electronics and the assistance and that sort of stuff.
Oh, totally.
And it's very, in terms of not budget, but in terms of something reasonable, there's not much out there that's actually a driver focused car that hasn't been taken over by technology and assistance and sensors and radar and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then don't even get started on manual transmissions. Which is virtually
manual
dead.
Transmissions, electric vehicles. Like there's a whole heap of stuff.
Yeah. Electronically controlled diffs. Like there's. It's very artificial. And don't get me wrong, I'm more of a modern car person.
Yeah.
But I definitely in a dream garage scenario, it's a 50-50. It's not all, Ferraris, Lambos, and brand new Porsches. There's I have a special place in my heart for E30 M3s and those. That's
one. That's one that's on my bucket list.
Yeah, that's a magnificent car. We have 3 that actually come into the shop here.
Oh yeah.
All magnificent, all immaculate, beautiful cars. That's a very, very special car.
Yeah. They're really cool.
Yeah. That something like a 1M is magnificent. 200 of them that came to Australia.
Yeah. Super rare.
Beautiful. We do a lot of them.
And still quite small.
Yeah.
Even the M2 now, it's like the size of an old M3.
It's huge. Yeah, they're massive.
It's just they're all growing so much because of all the safety and yeah.
I think a lot of the manufacturers go on the premise that newer is better and bigger is better.
Yeah.
Regardless of what it is, like if you compare, I saw a fantastic photo a few weeks ago on Instagram, and it was comparing 60s Porsches to 2020 Porsches.
Yeah.
And the size difference, they're double the size. It's
literally
enormous.
This thing's like a little toy.
Yeah, it's tiny. Even looking at older Minis compared to now, like Minis are huge. They're massive now. They're not a
They're not a
small
mini
car.
anymore.
They're not a mini anymore. Yeah, it's a medium. But yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, look, I definitely feel that way. I also have a place and a love for modern, and I also love that. Like I'm not anti-Tesla, for example. By the look on your face, you're very anti-Tesla.
I don't like the philosophy around electric vehicles.
Why?
Because to power them, you have to burn fossil fuel, and they're not as green as what people think they are. For me,
not even a little bit green.
No. And we have that many cars on the road, and if you actually do some, I always say to people,
it's only a tiny bit of research you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. No, but for me, I don't know whether it's necessarily the future. I feel like it's maybe a bit of an in between. I feel like we're in a bit of a point in time where the electric vehicle is almost the MP3 of the car world.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
So it's like a holding place for the future.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a place for electric or hybrid.
Yep.
But for me, I think if you look at every piece of automotive technology follows one thing. Mm-hmm. Do you know what that is?
No, what is it?
Formula One.
Okay, yep, fair enough.
So everything from Formula One race cars always filters through to road cars. Yeah. So particularly in the last 10, 15 years, I'm big into my racing. Mm-hmm. F1's gone from naturally aspirated V8s or V10s prior to that, and then V12s and V8s and now. They went through turbo era in the 80s. So they've kind of gone full circle again. Yeah. So they've gone from turbo to naturally aspirated, and then in the late 2000s, they went to KERS, kinetic energy recovery systems. Regeneration, brake regeneration, which went into things like
Teslas and regen braking.
Exactly. Teslas, but before that, Prius, etc. So Toyota technology, and now from next year they're going into synthetic fuel, fully synthetic fuel. Really? Yeah. So fully synthetic fuel using, if you haven't looked into it, look into it. It's very interesting. So basically, they use existing carbon from the atmosphere, through a process, mix it with hydrogen, and create a liquid fuel as per like a regular fuel that you put in your car today. they turned into the same thing, but with completely carbon neutral. And the argument is there's 1.5 billion cars in the world with petrol engines, and they're trying to push this electric technology, which you throw them in the bin once they need the batteries replaced in 10 years' time.
We're going to throw 1.5 billion cars.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that too. Yeah, exactly.
I'm very pro Tesla from not an environmental point of view.
Yeah.
Because I 100% agree that I believe you have to do 75,000 kilometers just to break even on a petrol car.
Yeah.
But that includes making it. That doesn't include the emissions.
Petrol or electric?
Electric. So you got to do 75,000 electric kilometers to 75,000 electric miles to break even in terms of the emissions from making it. That doesn't include transporting it or anything or any other trucks used to transport the actual rare earth minerals. And then on top of that, if you are, for example, in Australia,
but it's still being promoted as green.
It's still being promoted as green.
Which
absolutely.
I think it's not right.
No, not at all. And then if you're charging from the grid, I believe it's less than 5% renewable.
Correct.
So I think that it's a bit of a scam, but I think there is a place for that. That instant torque. It is very, it's a piece of technology.
Sure.
And I think that if you enjoy it as a piece of technology, it's great. But I think I think you're lying to yourself if you're buying it for the purpose of I'm green, I'm for the environment. That sort of reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
Have you driven one?
I've been in one. I haven't driven one. I know that they'd be amazing.
Yeah.
I love driving fast cars, and I love the thought of having that instant power and torque. But for me, driving is so much more than just putting your foot down and getting thrown into the back of the seat. For me, driving it's a real passion for me, and it's a love.
Absolutely.
I love the feedback you get from a steering wheel coming into a corner, hitting the brakes, heel toeing, throwing it back a gear, and then powering out of the corner. That's what I love about driving. I don't need to be the fastest car.
No, absolutely.
I just need to have a bit of
it's
soul,
a feeling.
soul
Absolutely.
in my car.
That's an excellent description.
And for me, an electric car doesn't have that soul, and it never will. And they're trying to create these cars that have artificial engine noises and things. And I think the latest E500e Abarth has that feature. An external engine noise, which sounds like the petrol version of the current Abarth. And it's
it's interesting. A lot of internal combustion engine vehicles actually already have speakers and have for a long time. Audi SQ5, for example, but 2015 Audi SQ5 V6 diesel has 2 speakers in the back in the exhaust, and it sounds like a V8. Well, maybe not. It sounds like a petrol. It sounds like a petrol, modified car. It's a bit sad, but it's interesting the way it's going. They're definitely the cars that are being produced today. I would say are very soulless and don't have a lot of character. But it's good to see that. It's good to see that you know what you want, and you're passionate about one particular thing, and there's definitely a lot here to be passionate about. That's for sure.
And for me, it's not just Porsches. I love all cars. I like experiencing different cars. The other day I went to a charity car show. I took my friend. My friend's got a Dodge Viper.
Oh wow!
And that was just an incredible thing to experience. It was like you really had to grab it by the scruff of the neck and bang it into the gears and really just manhandle it a bit.
It's not
that really long bonnet, E-Type-esque, long bonnet, and just 700 Newton meters of torque, and it's just an absolute animal.
What else is in your garage? Because I assume this isn't your daily.
No. So I've got a couple of other cars. So my daily, if you want to call it a daily, is a 2001 W208 CLK55 AMG.
Very nice.
So that's got a beautiful hand-built, naturally aspirated 5.4 litre V8. produces about 360 horsepower. But it's got 510 newton meters of torque.
Wow.
And it's a pretty nice car, to be honest. It's very low Ks, 100,000 Ks.
Yeah.
Or just over 100,000. I bought it a couple of years ago. I always admired the CLKs and the 55s. They're very underrated. They've got incredible braking package, incredible suspension package from Standard. That engine and gearbox, which I'm sure you're familiar with, the 113 V8 engine from Merc. In fact, there's one back there.
There is. When you arrived, I was showing you one. We've got an E55 AMG that's getting a bit of TLC this week.
Yeah,
as a lot of them do, or a lot of them need these days. Yeah.
But I guess the series that I've got doesn't have all that ABC suspension. It's still got the conventional suspension with Bilsteins, and
which will definitely work out better for you.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I love that car, and it's been very well maintained its whole life, and very, very good condition. I've also got the same car, which is a convertible.
So the first one's a coupe?
So the first one's a coupe, and then the second one's the same. So they're both black on black.
Yep.
The convertible, we believe it could be like one of 3 in Australia.
Wow.
They were only made for a very short period of time before the 209 series came out.
Okay.
So in the beginning of 2001, for about 6 months.
Wow.
And the very first cars we think may have come to Australia, right-hand drive. And they're on a 430 chassis number.
Okay.
But they've got, from factory, all the 55 running gear.
So the engine, the gearbox.
Engine, gearbox, diff, suspension, brakes, everything.
Yeah.
So that's one of 400 built, roughly. We just spent a bit of time. It was neglected quite badly, and
as so many of these beautiful cars are.
Yeah, definitely. And just considering the rarity, I took a look at it and I was just like, I've got to rescue it. Yeah. So the main thing was, it was very straight. It didn't look like it had an accident, and pretty much confirmed that. Really, you can tell it has had an accident. But every seal, like rear main seal, the rocker covers, the diff, the roof mechanics, the roof itself, it was just everything needed to.
Yeah.
So we went front to back. All the mechanicals, all the roof mechanicals, brand new roof. There's a few bits and pieces to do. Bought a set of 18-inch mono blocks, which, if you're familiar with that wheel, they just look, the hammer wheel,
the schmick.
They look very nice. It's running those wheels, and it's a very nice top-down cruiser. Yeah, it is. Very, very quick.
Very quick and very, very rare.
Yeah.
Why did they do that switch over from the 208 to the 208 or 408? No, 408.
To the 208.
The 208 to the 209.
It was a change in the model model year. So I think they started the 208 shape in 97 with the 230 compressor.
Yeah. But why was there that 6 month period of that?
Do you know what? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Actually don't even know. End of the coupe. Yeah. Maybe they thought, we'll do a convertible. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
But it was only for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they bothered, to be honest.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, it's very rare. Very rare. And do you track either of those cars?
No.
No, okay.
No. But
do you baby those cars?
Absolutely not.
Okay, good.
No. So I actually I'm part of this driving group, and I remember about a year ago, like it definitely I took the coupe on this particular drive. And there was about 50 cars, and very early start. We left at 5 o'clock in the morning. Ended up having breakfast up at Patonga.
Beautiful.
And I was like in the top 4 lead cars out of the 50. There was a brand new Cayman in front of me. Yeah. And then a GT3, and then I think it was an R35 GTR.
Yeah. Wow.
And on the way up the highway, the Cayman just could not get away from me, and it was like I was impressed. The car still holds its own after
absolutely
after 20 years. It's pretty impressive actually.
I find there are definitely a lot of cars that feel fast back in the day, and then 20 years on, you're like, oh, this is the slowest thing in the world. But then there are some cars that feel fast back in the day, and then today just hold it, and it just still
absolutely
a massive amount of power for what it is.
Yeah.
Are you only passionate about German cars?
No.
Would you get something else? Would you get like a Japanese, like
100%.
R34 GTR, for example?
I would love to one day, another bucket list car is an Aussie delivered R32 GTR.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, cool.
So having grown up in the 80s and 90s, and always being really into my racing, like I used to sit in my parents' bedroom watching their TV every weekend, watching touring car racing because the other TV was occupied, so I'd spend my whole weekends like watching racing. And an era that's very close to my heart is that late 80s, early 90s Group A era.
Yeah.
So your E30 M3s, your Ford Sierras, your GTRs, your Cosworth Mercs.
Yeah.
They're all cars that are really, there's something that I would love to one day have one of each of those for.
Yeah.
Because to me they're really iconic and they're all homologation. Going back to what I was saying about the 996 GT3, homologation special cars. So that's something that I would like to own one day. Yeah, one of each of those four.
Yeah, I mentioned in an earlier podcast that something that has turned me off about Porsche, and I think more specifically modern Porsches, is that, at least in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, they're everywhere. Yeah. And I think that something like, let's say, the newer Boxsters or a Cayman, the shapes are very, very similar to the 911s, for example. Yeah. Not super similar, but similar enough. Yeah. And they're everywhere. And I think that it actually ruins it a little bit. It ruins it, and it does make it, at least for
makes
me,
it a bit more mass market.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even though, I know it's not a mass market car compared to other brands, it definitely, for me at least, lowers the value in my mind of a bucket list sort of car. Yeah. But then obviously, your GT3 RSs, your GT2 RSs are.
They still make the special cars in lower volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you get a GT3 RS or a GT2 RS, a newer one? Or is that not? I don't. Does it for you?
It doesn't really do it for me. I don't know why. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd use it. If I wanted to get a track car, I wouldn't get that. If I wanted to get a track car, I'd probably get a Caterham or something.
Okay. Yep.
Something that's a proper purpose built,
a real track car. Yeah.
Almost like an open wheel kind of road car that you can drive to the track and really enjoy. So I appreciate they make those rare models, RS, GT3 RSs and GT2 RSs, but
it's not for you.
You can't use them on the road.
No,
you can't even use them a little bit. Yeah, exactly. And to take one to the track, I mean, sure, it'd be really nice to drive one on the track, but you can go and buy a 996 Cup car for a third of the price.
Yeah, exactly.
And with all your storage costs and everything, and you'd probably still way ahead after 5 years.
Yeah.
Those and
the GT3, the RSs are so expensive. It's ridiculous, man.
They are. Yeah.
This pizza's been an absolute fail. So we did the first 3 episodes.
It's delicious though. I mean, I don't care what it looks like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is. It's good. It's not a.
In case you wanted to see. That's what it looks like.
We got a bit of cheese everywhere. It didn't come super nice delivered. Yeah. What's the dream garage? Past it every episode.
The dream garage?
Yeah. Got 5 cars.
Oh, I thought you were asking about the space. I was going to say an aircraft hangar.
Yeah. No, dream lineup.
Dream lineup. There's too many.
I know. You can have. I've asked every guest this. You can have 5 cars.
Oof.
Unlimited budget.
You didn't even prep me.
No. It's.
I've already got one.
You've got. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. There's no budget. There's no budget. There's no limit. So if it's something super individual that never came to Australia, or you can't, or there's like 2 in the world, that's fine.
Okay. Have to be this, an F40, Probably a Countach.
Let me guess. Red F40, white Countach.
Yes.
Cool.
So that's 3.
So 3, yep.
A McLaren F1.
Yep.
And gosh, a 550 Spider.
Nice. Would you go for anything subtle? Or subtlety doesn't do it for you?
No, I mean, I think the McLaren F1's quite elegant.
Very elegant, very. By subtle, I meant more like a C7 Audi RS6 wagon.
Oh, actually, it's funny you mentioned, that's really random that you mentioned that, but I was looking at RS6s yesterday, and there's one for sale at the moment for 46, like a first generation RS6 Avant.
The V10?
No, the V8 twin turbo.
Okay.
An RS6 Avant, like from the I think 2004 or 5, and I was
okay.
like,
Yep.
Geez, that is cheap. It's only 130,000 Ks on it. Great looking car.
Those wagons have always had a soft spot in my heart.
I love that first generation. I don't know why people go, it's an old car, but no, I kind of like it. It's got it's subtle and it's got slightly pumped out guards and you know, but it still does 0 to 100 and like, you know, the 4s and tops out at 300 and something, you know.
Take the kids to school and do the shopping and
exactly. Yeah, no.
Surfboards in the back.
Yeah.
Wow. And you got a bike as well.
I do.
What do you have?
So I've got a 2012 Ducati 848 Street Fighter.
Okay.
So they only made the Street Fighter's like it's like a sport bike without the fairings. It's literally an 848 Evo. Okay. It's a naked.
Yeah.
So it's an 848 Evo without the fairings and with slightly raised bars. Not quite as raised as say a Jap
like an
naked.
Okay.
Like a Japanese naked. Yeah. But sort of in between a Japanese naked and a sport bike in terms of the handlebars. So it's got kind of a nice rakey look to it. Yeah. And 2012 was when that bike came out in 2009 in a 1098 variant at the motorcycle show. I just saw it and I was like, I fell in love with the design.
Same as this. Where you were just like, that's what I want.
That's what I want.
Yeah,
exactly. And I said, well, one day I'll get one. And 09, I was probably not in the position to spend stupid money on a motorbike back then, like $20,000 or $25,000. So in 2014, they just brought out the 848, which was like a refined version of the 1098, so slightly smaller capacity. Bit less horsepower, short stroke, 850cc V-twin. A quite revvy traction control as standard, which the 1098 didn't have other than on the S model. Okay. So they brought the S's traction control into the 848. I think they lengthened the swing arm a little bit. They put a wet clutch on it, made it more streetable. Yeah. And it came out in this yellow. It's like a metallic yellow that's sort of got a pearl through it, but changes colour. And I just, from the moment I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I've got to have that bike.
That colour.
That bike, that colour. And in 2014, I found one, and it was down at Fraser's in Victoria. Yep. So I went to Fraser's in Sydney, and I said, you got a bike at your other dealership in Melbourne. Yeah. I'd like to buy it. So we did a deal. 2 days later, I bought it. They sent it up to Sydney, and I've had it ever since. Wow! And it goes back to the same thing with cars for me. I like to drive something or ride something that's a bit more raw and involving. And even to this day, there's nothing that I've ridden that's modern, because everything's fly-by-wire throttles now, and ABS brakes and 50 levels of traction control. It's just like too much. Wheelie control and all this stuff, you know. And my bike, the only thing it's got is like a traction control, 8-level traction control, but no ABS. Cable throttle. It's just very raw.
So there's nothing you've ridden that you find that you either replace with or add to the collection?
No. I've owned a couple of Triumphs as well. Like I've actually bought and sold 2 Thruxton 900s.
Okay.
Which is like a cafe racer.
Yep.
Naked.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of based off of Bonneville.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought one of them before I owned the Street Fighter, and then I bought another one since I've owned the Street Fighter.
Yeah.
But I think the novelty of that wore off every time because it just wasn't powerful enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only about 70 horsepower or something, which
yeah.
doesn't sound like it's not. It sounds like a lot of power for a motorbike, which it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it is. But when you're used to 140 horsepower, it's like
it's another world.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you see yourself adding another bike to the collection? Or
if anything, I'd probably get a Harley.
I was just about to say your thoughts on Harleys.
Yeah, no, I've got a soft spot for Sportsters.
Yeah. Okay.
They handle quite well.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the States back in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
I was in LA.
Yep.
And I rented a Harley for 2 weeks and just cruised around.
Great.
And I met a couple of other guys. I went to Deus in Venice Beach, and I met some guys there, and they were like, "Let's go riding." And so we went riding around the canyons and all that in LA. And that thing, that sports, it was a 1200 Sportster.
Mm-hmm.
It surprised the hell out of me.
Yeah.
They actually really do handle, and you can get them leaned over. They're quite cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like those Sportsters. I don't like the big Harleys. They're a bit too heavy and sluggish. But
yeah, I've been on a few Fat Boys.
Oh yeah.
Never ridden. Don't trust myself.
Yep.
Had quite a wild quad bike accident actually a while ago. We were overseas for our gap year, and I was on the back of a friend's quad bike, and we rolled it down a cliff, like a hill.
Wow.
And snapped my collarbone clean, covered in blood, and it was. You can imagine the hospital facilities in Mykonos weren't too.
I was going to say, was that in Mykonos by any chance?
Mykonos, yeah. And I'd never get on the back of someone else's bike.
Yeah.
I did get on the back of my uncle's bike after that a couple of times. He's a bit more placid when it comes to riding, so that was fine. But I won't get on the back of someone else's bike. Busting to get a bike of my own though.
My opinion on motorcycle riding is, people. Actually, it's funny because I actually recently came back from Bali, and when you say to people here that you ride a motorbike, people go, "I'd never ride a motorbike in Sydney. That it's too dangerous." Yeah. And then
I don't agree with that, but I know that people say that.
But yeah, people do say it. Yet then, like I ride generally with, jacket, gloves, solid boots,
not Bondi leathers.
No.
Yeah.
And I go to I went to Greece in 2019. I rode around Greece for a month solo.
Yeah.
And people were like, "You're crazy riding in Greece. How can you?"
Was that a specific bike trip?
It was a bike trip.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I had an adventure tour in Bali recently. I had a motorbike. But you see a lot of tourists going to these countries who would never ordinarily ride in their own country.
Which is what we did.
Exactly. And having accidents, for example.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, I find it really interesting that people do that there, but then when they come here, they come back home, they don't want to they don't want to ride.
Yeah.
When I think if you're aware and you have your you keep your head up,
Keep your wits about you.
Keep your wits about you. Yeah, exactly. Then you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
I had one accident when I was 32.
How old are you?
I'm 40.
Okay.
So
you look excellent for 40.
Oh, thank you.
Here I am thinking, shit, did we go to school together?
Too kind. Yeah. So I had an accident up in North Sydney, and it was my fault. It was one of those ones that you learn from it.
Of course.
So I was on my own. I was riding down an alleyway, and the tarmac was very old.
Yeah.
There was a bit of gravel, and it was just a freak accident. I was coming up to a roundabout. I hit the front brake. I was only doing 40 k's an hour, and I locked up the front brake and just on that gravel,
Yeah.
and down I went.
Yeah.
You know, that was it was my fault. It was kind of unavoidable
Yeah.
at the time. But if I'd have known
What you know now.
what I know now.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Greece, there was some, villages
Questionable
and
roads.
like questionable roads.
Yeah.
And you think back to that moment
Yeah.
when I had that accident. Okay.
All right, I'm not
I was
going
going
to
to take it
again.
easy,
Yeah.
a bit more rear brake,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, it makes you more aware.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that just makes you a better rider over time with every situation.
Of course. I actually think it's more so with cars. I think it's so important to, in inverted commas here, have an accident as, not a teenager, but like, when you get your P's, not necessarily like a little fender bender, a little prang. I think for the people who don't have that, I find you learn the most from a silly mistake. Whether you run it into a curb, or you go into the back of someone lightly. I find I had a couple of those growing up, and I've been much more careful. I'm a spirited driver and a heavy foot for sure. But I've been much more careful because I'm aware of the consequences and I'm aware of the limits.
Yeah.
And I find that if you over protect yourself, I find you don't actually learn those lessons.
Yeah.
I'm still scared to get a bike though. I like to have a nice metal shell around me when being spirited.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I couldn't not ride now.
Yeah.
I always wanted a bike. When I was a little kid, I used to go to the motor show with my dad, and I'd always deviate to the motorcycle section because the motor show had bikes and cars back in the 80s, I remember seeing a Pee-wee 50 and then a Pee-wee 80, and I was like, "Oh, Dad, I want one of these." And he's like, "No." And then I think when I was 18, I said, or maybe even 16, I said, "Oh, I want to get a motorbike." And my dad goes, "You get a motorbike, you're out of the house."
Yeah, you're done. My mum said the same, and then I thought I'll get a bit older and I'll get one.
Yeah.
Got married, and it's probably not going to happen either. But it's much more extreme than cars, and I feel like cars are a bit more forgiving.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I haven't ridden, so what do I know?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, the only thing you probably can't avoid on a motorbike in terms of accidents, I think most people that have serious accidents and get seriously injured, generally speaking, it's their fault.
Oh,
as a rider.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Interesting. I was going to say other people, but okay.
Yeah, no, and everyone thinks that.
Yeah.
But it's not the case because everything's pretty much avoidable, except probably getting rear-ended at a set of traffic lights.
Yeah.
I would say, even going through an intersection, you learn after a few near misses that when you're going through an intersection on a green light, even if there's a green light and it's been a green light for ages, you roll off. Yeah. You make sure there's no one flying through the intersection before you go through.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and then you don't get T-boned, right?
Yeah, of course. I find it's wild. I see people on these ridiculous bikes on Panigales riding in a singlet and shorts and thongs, and it's the most like that scares the shit out of me. Like for me, if I ever get to ride, it's helmet, full leathers, boots, gloves, everything. Yeah. But it's each their own.
Unless you're in Mykonos.
Unless I'm in Mykonos. It's funny. We arrived in Mykonos, and my mum's like, "No, you're not." My mum's like, "There's no way you're getting quad bike. There's no way. Get cabs." And there's 10 cabs on the islands at the time. This is in 2014. Yeah. And 2014, 2014. She's like, "There's no way." So then what do? Young idiot. Send her a photo of me and my friend at the time. Well, my friend, and we're on quad bikes. She's yelling and screaming and upset. And then obviously no helmets, and we had the accident. And then I told her at the time, no, I promise we were wearing helmets. It was totally fine. And later she did find out there was no helmets, but we should be dead. That was a terrible.
Sounds like
accident.
A bad accident.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
Really bad.
We actually, it's a pretty sad story. We were in the hospital, and there's I'm still walking. Like at this point, after it happened, like I was blacked out at the bottom of this hill, and I actually thought my shoulder was popped out, so I was trying to pop my shoulder back in. I probably made it worse. And these guys who saw it happen, they kind of went around to the bottom of the hill, and then they came to like pick us up and like tip our quad back over, and then they were like, all right, we're gonna take you to a hospital. So we jumped on the back of their quad, and I'm sitting there holding my arm. It's 2:00 in the morning. It's actually my birthday as well. First night of Michaelmas.
Great birthday present.
Excellent birthday. And we're on the back of their quad, like on these bumpy roads. I'm just like, oh, fuck. And the adrenaline's sort of kicking in, and I'm not really feeling much. But so we went to 2 pharmacies, a doctor, and then eventually found a hospital with X-ray facilities. And we got the X-ray, and he told me, and he strapped me up. And then this guy walked out of one of the rooms, and head to toe covered in blood, and guy from Melbourne, and we said, are you okay? What happened? He said, yeah, we had a quad bike accident. Same with us. Went from road to gravel, and just lost control. And we said, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm fine, but my missus isn't. Lying in bed, quadriplegic.
Oh, yeah. Very sad. Yeah,
very. And so I'm thankful that I got away with broken collarbone and a couple of cuts.
You're a lucky boy.
Very lucky boy. And my mother doesn't let me live it down. But lessons were learned. Yeah. Lessons were learned. And it was a great trip, though. We had a lot of fun.
Just on accidents. I think one thing that, for me, I think everybody, it makes you just such a better driver and a better rider, is if you do track days.
100%. Whether it's a track day or a defensive driving course, something like that.
Whatever it is. Yeah. Track day is probably the wrong phrase for most people, but a driver training course on a racetrack with a professional driver.
100%.
That I've done both motorcycle stuff and car stuff in the past. And
I actually think it should be mandatory for driver's license.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I think it definitely should be. Because you really learn the limits of a car, and when you get out of shape and you scare yourself, you realise what can happen when that happens. So, in a safe environment.
For sure. And I think it's not about being a dickhead and learning how to drift and learning how to,
although that's fun.
100%. There's definitely a place that I definitely think that anyone who's into that should definitely go do that. Yeah. But, you have these things that, so I believe it's still 120 hours for your L's, but if you do that with an instructor, I believe it's 5 hours per 1 hour of driving. So then you can really cut that down. Yeah. And I think that's up to 10 lessons or something. So you can, 10 lessons and you get 50 hours or whatever. I think that'd be much better spent on a track with a driver and learning, when you skid, what do you do? What do you do with brakes? What do you do with gas? When you're in that situation.
Sure.
In the wet. But never going to happen, unfortunately. Not with the society that we have. I think people are very see it as a it's going to encourage more people to drive like hoons and to drive more dangerously.
Which in fact it does the opposite. Because I actually you said everyone needs to have an accident, I think, at some point, right? So when I was
which I mean in a positive way,
of course,
don't go out and smashing cars.
So when I was 17, I was 17, I think. I was on my red P's. I was flying up this back street near where I lived.
Within the speed limit, of course.
Well over the speed limit. But I was treating it like a racetrack. Yeah. And I came around this bend, and a car was coming around the corner. And the way the corner was, it was an off-camber corner coming down the hill. I was going up the hill. So the car coming down the hill was sort of cutting the corner, and I was trying to hug the corner, but there wasn't that much room, and I hit the brakes mid-corner, which you never do. No. Especially in a front-wheel drive car. Because it was a front-wheel drive manual. So I ended up getting a bit of lift off oversteer, tried to correct it, flicked, and went into a parked car. Wow. And wrote the car off. Yeah. That was my first big accident. And then having such an interest in motorsport and all of that, I ended up doing some track days and I actually got it out of my system doing that at a really young age, and I had no interest in speeding on the road anymore in that way. you know.
It's exactly what I was just about to say, that getting it out of your system is important. And I find the track is so inaccessible for most, in terms of, you know, if you live in the eastern suburbs, for example, there's nothing close. You're going to
Sydney Motorsport Park, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Goulburn, which is now currently closed, I think.
Yeah.
Marulan, Oran Park's gone. That was a great track back in the day.
Yeah. There's it's hard to do it. You know, it's hard to do it, and it's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
And I think that if they had some sort of, whether it was a government or a council-run program where, you know, subsidies for sure, and you can book a time. It's $50, $100, someone else's car, or, you know, $50 and your own car, and then you have the option to actually learn how to be a defensive driver, how to be a better driver. Because I feel like because it's so inaccessible, the only option is jump in your Triple S Pulsar and 120 k's down the road. You know, it's not. People just need to get out of the system. You know, which I think we're all victims of.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you tinker at all with your cars?
Not really, no.
Do you want to?
I have an interest in how things work, but I don't work on them, like, apart from topping up oils and just general checking of things. I'm probably mechanically minded. If I wanted to go there, I probably could, but I just rather. I've had so many bad experiences in the past with, you know,
trying to do something and shit, I can't get this back together.
No, I think well, it's more to do with mechanics and whatnot. So if I've had some bad mechanics, I've found some good ones now, and I know it's going to get done right. I'd rather not tinker with stuff myself. I'd rather just have somebody that's specialised do the car. So with this car, this goes to a Porsche specialist. My Merc goes to a Merc specialist. And my Ducati goes to a Ducati specialist.
Of course, yeah.
You know?
As it should be.
Yeah.
You know, I find when it is something special, it should go to someone special.
Yeah.
Because they're working on those day in and day out. And, you know, like a lot of those individual problems that are going to be common on these sort of cars, they're going to be able to pick up on, rather than just just thinking, okay, well, this is a common across cars, well, and then, you know, working on those sort of bases. But yeah, it's so important to have the right person look after your cars.
Definitely.
Often we get cars here where, you know, they've been to, you know, X, Y, and Z mechanic, and, you know, like a lot of guys who will work on, like, let's say just Japanese cars or just Korean cars or just American cars will get something like a C63 in, and they'll do something, and then it'll be worse than when it came in, and then we get that, and then it's like, okay, well, now we're fixing a problem, and then we're fixing someone else's problem, and it gets messy.
Yeah, of course.
It gets messy. But
yeah, definitely.
It's just.
I actually had that the other day with
happened?
the Ducati. I got a major service. Haven't had. They do a Desmo service every 5 years. Or 25,000 Ks, I think.
What's included in that?
Just, you know, they belts, valve adjustments, just all the fluids, tightening the chain, you know, or adjusting the chain and whatnot. And the person that did the chain and sprockets last time put something on wrong. I've been riding it around all this time. My mechanic goes, "Oh, I need to fix this. This is someone else's
fuck up."
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So there is a bit of that. Yeah.
Look, you're always going to have a percentage of people who are just, you know, not experts in their craft. Yeah. But, you know, it's how it is. It's how it is. If people want to reach you, how can they reach you? Or they can't.
I mean, I've got.
You don't have to.
I have an Instagram. It's more about my cars than me.
Yeah, it's good.
But yeah, just at Paul Cassimaty is my Instagram handle. That's it,
mate. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for bringing this beast. Does she have a name?
Elma.
Where did Elma come from?
So the original number plate.
Yep.
Started with ELM.
Yep.
And I was like, what's an old lady's name that starts with ELM?
Elma. And the Mercs?
They haven't got names.
Okay. And the bike?
Bumblebella.
Bumblebella.
Yes.
I like it. Okay. Like Bumblebee
Bumblebee, but obviously Italian and a female.
Of course. Yeah.
So, everyone says, "Oh, it's like Bumblebee," and I'm like, "No, Bumblebella. It's got the wasp kind of look, or the bee kind of look to it."
Oh, absolutely. Mate, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah,
and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.